This is Eric Rutan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
Greetings all and a very good day to you wherever you might be listening from. I appreciate that you have tuned in because I have a conversation with former In Flames bassist Peter Iwers and drummer Daniel Svensson to share with you. They were members of In Flames for 2 decades apiece and they now have a new outfit titled The Halo Effect. They're launching a debut. It'll come out on August 12th, 2022 via Nuclear Blast, and in this chat we talk all about the new album and to dive deep into the fella's tenure with In Flames. Before we get to the chat, let's listen to a tune from the new album. This one is the title track. Once it is finished, you'll hear what Peter and Daniel have got to say. Let's go. How you going?
Good. How are you?
Good. I love it. I'm a bassist too, mate. Leave it up.
Awesome. Just going to connect my headphones.
I think Dan's just connecting to audio now. So,
huh?
There he is.
Sorry. Yeah.
Hello.
Hey, mate.
Hi.
Okay. This is unusual. I don't often get to two ex-members of In Flames. This is awesome.
You don't?
Yeah.
Well, I've spoken to Bjorn and Anders before, but this is quite a privilege, I must say. I'll get that out of the way straight away.
Thank you.
I'm a very big fan of the work you guys did in Flames. I think it's extraordinary.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Yeah. How have the calls been going, in light of the fact that you do have this new band here, but, I'll probably follow a fairly similar trajectory to other people and talk a little bit about In Flames. But have people been asking you intelligent and insightful questions about this new outfit, the Halo Effect?
Yeah, absolutely. I got to say, it seems to be a huge interest, and people are very well informed usually. So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. I would think so too, given your history, both of your history and legacy and your association with the Gothenburg scene and Swedish metal in general. I was very, when I received the album, or a bit of a heads up that you guys were back and you were doing something, and especially you've got Michael fronting the band too from Dark Tranquility. I was very excited. Then when I heard it, and it sounds great, it didn't let me down. That's another very positive thing.
Yeah. Happy to hear. Thanks.
Yeah. Look, for the benefit, I do host a podcast. So for the benefit of the listener, I'm going to do a bit of a career summary of all of the band's members, if that's okay, just to give some people some context, because I'm sure there's going to be some people listening that are like, why is Andrew being so enthusiastic about this outfit? Well, here's why. I think it's important to go through this, as I say, because of your contribution to heavy metal over the decades. Michael, I'm going to mispronounce your Swedish names here, so my apologies in advance. I'm a shocker this way. Michael Stan, or Stanny, is on vocals. Stan, there you go. Stan, yeah, there you go. My Swedish students at university would be lambasting me for getting that wrong, so there you go. But he is a foundation member of Dark Tranquility. Indeed, he is the sole remaining foundation member. Nicholas Angelin, he was a member of the overlooked Gardini. God, I remember them back in the day. And he's a long-time associate and
Sarcasm.
And Sarcasm. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, even older band.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there's just so many killer bands that emerged in that part of Sweden in the early 90s, late 80s, isn't there? And but the thing about Nicholas is he's still in Flames, I understand. Okay, so he's a long-time associate and a tenured member of In Flames. Now, here's the guy that I think a lot of people want to know a bit more about, Jesper Stromblad, the founding member of In Flames, if I'm not mistaken. And he's been an integral member of far too many bands to count, notably Hammerfall. I don't think people realise that he played a very integral role in Hammerfall early on. And that leads me up to you guys. So Pete, of course, you were a member of In Flames for 2 decades, and you either still are or you were in Shira with Jesper. And
I was. I did one record with them.
There you go, yeah. And Dan, of course, you were a member of In Flames for almost 2 decades as well, and that's my point there. So people who actually know, and I know I've spoken a lot, apologies for that, people used to be doing that, but I just wanted to give people some background as to why I think it's so important that you guys are back and doing what it is that you do as a collective, because I don't think you guys are a super group. I think you guys are a bit beyond that. I think you're founders and you're an originators of a genre, you're popularisers of a genre, called mellow death, call it whatever you will. But look, I love the fact that you're all together in a killer new band that honours the tremendous legacy that you've each established. Do you think that I've summarised?
Thank you very much.
Do you think it's an accurate summary? Yeah.
Absolutely. Daniel had another band as well, Sacrilege, before that. But
Sacrilege, okay, gotcha.
Flames. But other than that, I think it was correct. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. The name of the album, Days of the Lost, okay, in many ways, as I say, I'm an old fan of In Flames. I feel like it's the spiritual successor to Reroute to Remain. In that In Flames' sound, it changed after that album. And I'm not saying for the worse. I'm just saying it changed because, Anders didn't like me talking about that, but it is what it is. And from Soundtrack to Your Escape onwards, so almost 2 decades ago now. But do you agree that in some ways the album is a spiritual successor to Reroute to Remain?
Oh, interesting. I haven't really thought about it. When you make music like we do, you tend not to overthink stuff, right? You just go in and you write music and you kind of know that what comes out will sound a certain way because of the style that we are playing and how we're playing and performing our music. So I haven't really thought about it, but maybe it's not something. It wasn't definitely nothing intentional. We just went in. We had a bunch of ideas, and we came out with a bunch of songs that happened to sound a certain way. But none of us really overthought it, and it was never meant to. It's going to sound like this or it's going to sound like that. We just let's write this music and see what happens. And because of, like I said, how we're playing, it will sound a certain way.
Daniel, what do you think?
It's hard for us. Yeah, a lot of people like to analyze music. And of course, it sounds Gothenburg metal-ish because we all are from that genre. And we are some of the people that kind of created it. So, of course, it will sound Gothenburg metal-ish, In Flames-ish. And then which era, I don't know. And as Peter said, we don't really think about how it should sound. This is how we sound today. And with our legacy, this is inevitable that we sound as we do.
Yeah, I agree. It's not like you were going to, I mean, potentially it could have happened, but I couldn't imagine that you'd sound any other way. But I think my comments allude to something else, the quality's there. Okay, and that's what I mean, that it's a spiritual successor to Reroute to Remain. I actually think this is the album that a lot of old fans of In Flames are going to pick up on, and that might actually get them back into. It might help them join the dots, so to speak, and actually try to understand what In Flames has been doing since then. Is that feedback that you've received?
Sometimes, yeah. People, I mean, obviously, people like to do a lot of comparing is the word between us, but I know it's a difficult topic to discuss because none of us have, even though we've all been in Flames at some point, none of us really thought about this as what you're saying. But then a lot of people that we speak to say it, so it's kind of a little hard to take in, as we've been very thorough in just writing music, kind of. But I'd say it's a little flattering to hear it.
Great, well, you deserve it. It's a compliment well earned. Yeah. What about, were there riffs and ideas on Days of the Lost that were in the vault for decades? In other words, is this an album that was written over decades, or are these all brand new ideas that you came up with together?
It's a little bit of both. There were at least some of my ideas were old and meant for something else. Then I played it, and then we turned them into, we changed some stuff and maybe changed some tempos and stuff. But some were new, some were old. Can't really say for the other guys because they were, I mean, all of the ideas were fresh for everybody else. And since we kind of wrote the album together and got inspired from each other's ideas, I guess you can say that everything was kind of fresh. It's not like we had songs laying around that were rejects from something else. It's just, when you constantly write and you write in your head and like you write, and sometimes you put it down on tape and sometimes you don't. Is that the answer?
No, it's a good answer. It's a solid answer. And Daniel, was it the same thing for you being the drummer, of course? Do you have some rhythmic ideas and cadences that you brought from way back into the fold this time around?
No, not really. I always try to adapt my drumming into what the actual riff sound like. So I try to, how should I describe it? I don't want to destroy the music. I try to add a subtle extra. So I don't have any old ideas lying around. But the thing is, this time, because of the pandemic, we had a really long recording process. So we could have long breaks in between the studio sessions, which made it easier to not get trapped in a box doing the same things all over, which easily could happen when you have like 2 weeks drum session on an album. It's hard to come up with fresh ideas. So it was nice not having a stressful recording. I could take my time, or everyone could take a breather in between the songs and think about stuff and come up with new ideas.
Who was the producer that you decided to work with?
Oscar Nilsson is the guy who produced and recorded the album with us. And then we used the Jens Bogren as a mixer fantastic. And master. Yeah. So but Oscar was with us from the demo stages and produced this together with the band.
Yeah, well, Oscar, who else has Oscar worked with that might be prominent?
I guess his most recent big name is Hank Von Hell, the old Turbo Negro singer.
Yeah.
But he's done quite a lot of stuff, but I haven't really paid attention. But he's a really good friend to Niklas to begin with, and he took us into his studio where we could write and record demos, and then we all felt comfortable working with him. So it's a really, really great producer.
Just talking about lyrical themes and some of the topics that were addressed this time around. Can you speak for Michael on this one here? Do you know what he was singing about and what lyrical narrative that he brought to the album?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, rough tempo. I mean, he says he brought up things that he felt were mutual for all of us, like the attraction to the metal, the being as an outsider, the only guy in your school listening to metal and stuff like that. Trying to fit in while you grew up, but you always were that outsider, and you kind of seeked your way into meeting other outsiders and forming bands and doing stuff together. And he wrote about how we all could relate to that matter, and that's kind of Days of the Lost, the meaning of the title in itself. Because when you grow up and you I mean, it's not always easy being an outsider, but once you find out that there are other people like you, and this is, I mean, growing up before social media and stuff like that, you had nobody really to connect with. You kind of cherished that after a while, and then when you met other people, you felt like you belonged to a community all of a sudden. And I think that is something that we all shared.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I get that. Yeah. Talking about a community and something you all share, you two have been a tremendous rhythm team, as I've mentioned, for decades now. What is it about your playing what is it about the way you guys gel? Because I'm a musician too. I'm a bassist, so I know it's in my opinion, it's probably the most important role in a band live, the drummer and the bass player, to make sure that you guys lock in. So what is it about each other's playing that you enjoy?
I mean, first of all, we've been doing more than 1,000 shows together, maybe 2,000 shows together. We know each other in and out, both playing wise and privately. And it's becoming a symbiosis in between the drums and bass of through all these years, I would say. It's like a self-playing piano, basically.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. And Peter, what do you think?
It's hard to describe.
No, you sum it up really well, Daniel. It's a symbiosis, and I think that when Daniel plays, I know exactly what to play on it. I know how his style is. I know, I mean, I always say Daniel is the grooviest drum machine that I know. It always never misses anything. Is always perfect, but he's very groovy. And even comparing him to other drummers, it's been very easy to play with Daniel because of the experience and because of the way that he plays that I really enjoy. So it's very natural. But and I think it was very early on as well. It's like, I guess we have the same type of style and thinking when it comes to the backbone of the music.
Yeah, you kind of.
It has to be. Sorry. Yeah, I think so. It has to be. I mean, I'm not that kind of drummer that want to show off and stand out. I want to be the base, the fundament, and just add some subtle things. And I think Peter has the same ideas when it comes to playing the bass, not freak out too much just to show off, and that I think we kind of play in the same way, even though we have two different instruments.
Yeah, you definitely were a core part of that In Flames sound there. There's no doubt about it. It was, the guitars are one thing in Flames, like the twin lead thing, the Adrian Smith, Dave Murray thing, but you guys definitely had the old Nico Steve thing going on there with the way you guys locked in, because
you
could isolate your tracks and it sounded very musical and melodic.
Cool. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Were there any significant challenges in the studio with Days of the Lost that did you go down any avenues where you had to do a U-turn or anything like that?
No, that's the great thing about it. I think Daniel said earlier that we had so much time in the studio. We started this project the end of 2019. And then came the pandemic when we were almost ready to launch it then, not that we had any record there or anything, but, we wanted to go public with the name, but we couldn't. So because nobody could tour. So we had so much time and we kept on writing. We kept on writing and writing and writing. And there's more material that's not going to be on this album that we will save for later. There were some parts, obviously, where you go in after a while and rethink. But I think we were all very thorough in keeping the first impression, so to speak. Not change, because I really don't like that when you go in after a while and you think that I should have done that instead, because we try to keep the first ideas still there. Could have been a beat or like a melody or something that was lifted out after a while, but no U-turns, no nothing. We just kept on writing what felt good.
Yeah,
and also the knowledge that no one knew about the band, because this was a secret. We really didn't have any pressure on ourselves or expectations. We just walked into the studio with a mindset of having fun. It's more difficult when you are a band already released a few albums. You know that people have expectations, and that makes it a little bit more difficult. Now we could do whatever we wanted, basically, because no one knew that we existed. So it was much easier that way.
I've asked this question of a lot of the Nuclear Blast artists, but did Marcus from, the old Nuclear Blast owner, did he knock at your door with the Tonic Fire at all? Was it always just you were going to be working with Nuclear Blast?
We sent it out to a couple of labels, and I think there were a few interests, but I mean, having worked with Nuclear Blast for such a long time, and also having worked with Robert when he was on Century Media, I think that no, there wasn't really any other options for us.
Yeah,
as far as I think.
Was it one of those situations though where you want this band to be known as a completely new band, even though you all have such a rich history with Swedish death metal?
What do you mean?
As in, there's one of those things where sometimes history can be overwhelming and the legacy can be a bit of a challenge to overcome, and it can be known as former members of band now have a new band. It sounds like as though you're comfortable with that, which I think is a wonderful thing, because In Flames is such a great band from back in those times. But would you prefer for people to know about this band just as, hey, look, it's the Halo Effect and it's just the Halo Effect, or are you quite happy for it to be known as, you're all coming from different parts of Swedish death metal and this is just what you're doing right now?
For me personally, I want to have it as a new band, but it's people will compare us with In Flames and bring up our history, but we don't talk about it ourselves. We want this band to stand out and do what it does because of what it is, not because of what we were, of course. But we will always be compared with In Flames, and people will always ask questions about it. And as you said, we've been in the band for 2 decades, but this is a new thing, even though we have history.
Yeah. I think a lot of people in my position, though, especially given this might be the only chance I have to talk to you, it's far too good an opportunity not to talk about some of those momentous things that you achieved whilst you're in Flames. Do you finding that, though, that people, with a lot of respect there, I think people would be doing that. Is that what's happening in interviews?
Sure.
Yeah, it's inevitable, and I don't mind talking about it. It's been a big part of our lives. To be fair, I spent more than half my life, at least when I quit, I spent almost half my life in the band. And it's a big part of my life, and it's made a big impact on our lives. So, I mean, we will talk about it, but we prefer to talk about new things and not drag in flames, of course. But I mean, we're super proud of what we achieved. And a good thing about it is that at least I feel that I don't have anything to prove anymore. So I can take this new band less stressful, because we already been doing this for so long and achieved so much. So that's a good feeling coming into this new band, knowing that it doesn't really matter. We've already done it. So this is just for the fun of it.
Mm. Well, you both appeared on Colony. I think any of the musicians that were on Colony, you've got a ticket for the rest of your lives to do basically whatever you want to do, such as the impact that album had. So can you tour at the moment? I mean, I understand most of Europe is opening up, but then, of course, we've got this bloody war situation, unfortunately, unfolding in the Ukraine. Have you got some shows booked in Europe?
Yeah, there's we have our first show this Saturday in Sweden Rock. And then there's I think there's one in Turkey and one in Slovenia and one in Germany. We're doing, and we're also going over to Japan for Download Fest in August. And then it's a big tour booked for starting middle of September together with Machine Head and Amon Amarth, where we're supporting.
Machine Head, that'll be interesting. Yeah, I know their fans are, they're morphing. They're becoming real metalheads these days. But that's a big deal for you guys to get that tour, I take it. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, friends of ours from before, and we were looking for that very opportunity to go out onto a big stage and get some really nice exposure before two killer bands. So that's a very good deal for us.
Mm. Look, I mentioned Colony a moment ago, and I've got a question for you about it. I wrote a book, you see, and Anders and Bjorn are in it around my conversations around some of the things that I've mentioned there about the change in the band's sound. But look, you guys were there, so but the group was a revelation by the time Horacle had come out. And then when you guys came on board, I mean, the surging popularity on the Colony in 1999, it was one of those rare moments in heavy metal history where a band released a great album and then released an even better album with Colony. Colony's actually so good that I think it's one of the greatest albums from a Swedish outfit, which is kind of like saying it's one of the greatest heavy metal albums of all time. And I think people who know, they know. It's a peerless album. So look, when you guys were writing and recording Colony, did it feel like it was going to be a momentous release?
No. I mean,
no, not really.
Back to it's like we never thought about stuff like that. We still don't, as you can see. We were just into it to have fun, make music, and go on tour. And I think the moment where you start thinking like that, that this is going to be the album, then I think some things can get lost a little bit in the process. For me, it's really important just to stay focused and do the best that we can, and hope that carries it all the way, so to speak. But obviously you feel that this is a great song and this is a good riff or whatever. This can be really, really well achieved. But Colony was our first album with In Flames recording, and I was just psyched to make an album.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying, don't you? And you see what people are wearing to the shows and stuff, the Colony T-shirts or what have you, it is. I remember thinking Horacle could never be better, and then the Colony came out and it was just like, I can't believe what I'm hearing. And I think it was, and I've got to give you guys a huge credit for this, the internet had come along by then and people were turning away from magazines and Rolling Stone and all of that bullshit that had long since written off heavy metal. I don't know whether you guys felt it, but in countries like Britain, Australia, the United States, the so-called Western markets, it was In Flames that was the tip of the spear, and in particular it was Colony that brought heavy metal back into the spotlight. Please tell me that's feedback that you've been given before.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been getting lots of great feedback and bands saying that they were inspired and all that stuff. And I think it's I mean, I don't know if it's just because we're Swedish and super humble, but it is hard to take in, that you're somebody's inspiration. But when you stop and think about it, it's a great honor to be considered that, and to have the music considered, like you said, the greatest metal album. That's fantastic. And we've heard lots and lots of stuff like this throughout the years, and it obviously never gets tired to hear. But I mean, I have such a hard time. It's kind of like that was somebody else doing that, Yeah. I never really think like that, it's I don't know why. I mean, obviously I enjoy it, but I don't go around thinking, hey, I played on Colony,
Yeah.
I don't do that. I don't think like that.
Yeah, Swedes are like Australians. We tend to be fairly humble and not really talk up success. Yeah. Feel like that way for you, Daniel, as well?
Yeah, well, I think why the album become like so important, I think that's the time when In Flames decided to start touring. Before it was a lot of different members or switching place. But I think we decided to try to do our best and tour as much as possible. And I think some of the songs are written more for a live environment than the previous albums. We started to think more about the live show. That's why that album became a little bit different, and it was a good timing as well.
Yeah,
and as Peter said, I mean, sometimes you have to pinch your arm and think about it, but at the same time, if you get too satisfied, you stagnate. So you always try to improve, and sometimes it makes you maybe forget about what you have achieved. Sometimes you need to stay and just suck in all positive words. But yeah, that's not our best thing.
No, fair enough. Yeah. Look, I mentioned up top that I'd spoken to Anders about the significant shift in the band's sound from Soundtrack to Your Escape. And he wasn't rude to me or anything like that, but he didn't want to talk about it. And he firmly told me that we've always been like, we control this ship, nobody else. No worries whatsoever there. I don't begrudge any band for doing what they need to do for any reason, whether it's for commercial reasons or artistic reasons. But both of you were around for that shift, and no doubt you felt some of the feedback back then from fans. As best as you can recall, was it actually a strategy or a decision to chase a more updated, more, let's say, radio-friendly or more rock sound?
No,
I don't think it was never
the same. So it was the same in Flames. We wrote songs that we enjoyed to play, and we didn't want to repeat ourselves. We've been answering this question several times.
Yeah,
but
I appreciate it.
Basically, we don't want to play the same thing, the same song all over again. We want to explore new areas, even though we didn't want to get too far away from what we do, but it gets boring. And we wrote songs that we liked, and then people could take it or leave it. And I mean, they liked it. You know.
Yeah, Peter, same for you too, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that once you start thinking about how things should sound, then it won't be natural. Then it won't be. It won't turn out great when it comes to our type of music. That's if you're a songwriter sitting in the studio trying to write hits, that's different. But we never thought about that. We just tried to make music that we enjoyed ourselves, and we still do. It's super easy to just talk about it. It's kind of like it's just being honest. It's like being honest. If you're always honest, you never have to remember a lie. You can always say, and that's the same with music. If you just write what you feel, you can talk about it and you can feel it, and at any point.
Yeah, I like what you just said. Yeah, you don't have to remember a lie. I like that. Or there's the myth of the lie too. You have to keep remembering the myth of what you were saying at a particular point. Yeah, look, can't begrudge, as I say, the band for doing what you did. it ended up sending you guys into the stratosphere even more popular. You went from being an underground, people like me, underground metal fans' favourite, to being a band that was even played on Triple M here, I think, at times. And I think even recently the decisions that the band have been making have put them even further into the spotlight by supporting Deep Purple. You saw the gig that the band did recently. Success is success, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think that's something we always felt like doing, crossing borders and working with, bands in different styles and different producers and, even signing record deals with a big label to get better distribution and stuff like that. We've always tried as bands and as persons to think outside the box. Because you're a metal band doesn't mean you can't tour with Iron Maiden or Deep Purple or or extreme metal band. I think that's a good way of thinking, and we still do with Halo now.
Yeah, well, look at the tour you've just scored here with Machine Head. I wouldn't have picked that, but that's a wonderful thing because their fans need to be exposed to some quality extreme metal such as you guys. Yeah,
great. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah. I'll make this my final question for you then, because as I say, you guys were around. You were around back then when, the spark became a flame, which became a bonfire. Do you agree with my opinion that without the Swedish contribution to rock and metal throughout the 90s, when rock and roll was all but cast out and declared dead, as I say, by Rolling Stone and all those bloody magazines and the American mainstream media, that if it wasn't for the Swedish contribution, and I suppose the black metal contribution from Norway as well, that rock and metal globally would not have surged in popularity as it did in the early 2000s as the internet took over. Do you guys think that it was really the Swedish and the Norwegian contribution that was the catalyst, if you like, for rock and metal to roar back into the mainstream?
I think that we were part of it, but then also after we started, it came a lot of bands from America and all over that were inspired by this type of style, came out and made it even more popular. And then we were inspired by those bands again, and then they were inspired by us. So, it's really hard to say that it was the Swedish, but I know that we definitely had part of it. Absolutely. They're great bands. I know, for instance, a band like Hammerfall, I think they're solely responsible for bringing back power metal.
Agreed.
Hadn't they been as huge as they became, I think that a lot of bands wouldn't be around today. Kind of like just revived that whole scene. And that, in my opinion, that was solely because of Hammerfall. So, yeah.
Yeah. Daniel, your view on that?
I agree about Hammerfall, definitely. But I think if it wouldn't have been for the Swedish or Norwegian bands, I think it's about timing. I think there will probably be another scene from another country that would have probably taken that place. Now I think that there came a lot of bands from this area at exactly the right time. So it's about timing as well. So I think the scene maybe would have looked the same, but it could have been because of bands from other countries and regions. But I think the timing was perfect. So. But as Peter said, Hammerfall is solely responsible for a revival of the power metal scene, definitely.
So blame them.
Without a doubt.
Blame them.
But blame them for bringing Judas Priest Painkiller into the mainstream. Exactly.
No.
Yeah, that's all good. But hey, one thing I will say is I think every metalcore band out there owes you guys a debt of gratitude. If it wasn't for you guys, I don't think metalcore would sound like it does.
Well, I've spoken to a lot of friends in different metalcore bands that say they were really inspired, and then I go back to tell them, "Well, you inspired us," Bands like Killswitch Engage and As I'm Dying, Trivium, Unearth, Devil Driver. Great bands that I still love today. So I think, and that's the fantastic thing about music, that you can inspire each other back and forth.
Yeah, you share that view too, Daniel, on that point.
Yeah, I do. And I agree that metalcore, that the Swedish bands started and was a big influence on metalcore. But then the metalcore scene evolved into something of its own pretty fast. And then, as Peter said, we borrowed stuff from the metalcore scene when it became like bigger and better. In the beginning, I wasn't a big fan at all, but now, as Peter said, I also love these bands. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, that's how music evolves. You all inspire each other. It's like a tree. The branches just go on and on.
Yeah, I've spoken to a lot of Swedish musicians. I've done well over 700 interviews, and I ask that question a lot because I'm 44, so I was around back in the 90s, and I remember what it was like. It was dead. Metal was all but gone, and I could remember the Nuclear Blast, the Death is Just the Beginning compilations.
Yeah,
that's how I heard you guys. Yeah, and I remember thinking, who is this fucking band? It just sounds unbelievable. You know, I was into Morbid Angel and Deicide and stuff, but I'd never heard anything quite like it. And I know that from talking to people, my experience has been repeated tens of, maybe hundreds of thousands of times around the world. You know, old school Morbid Angel, Deicide fans, they hear you guys because we also loved Iron Maiden. And then there were some other things mixed in there again, some almost proggy, not pop, but, you know, elements of bands like Rush and even Pink Floyd. I could hear Pink Floyd in Flames too, occasionally, you know, just with some of the space that you'd leave between things. And very inspiring.
You're spot on there. I mean, we those bands and many other bands are bands that always inspired us. And I think one of the keys to why we sound like we do is because we don't let... You know, we take inspiration from everywhere, from all types of music, from each other. There's no limit, kind of. You know, I think that maybe not so much these days, but in the past, a lot of bands were solely inspired by their own style. You know, which will make them stagnate after a while. And I think what we always do with In Flames and with Halo Effect and anything else that we played on is just, you know, we expanded our views, and whatever was good, we incorporated that into our music.
And I think also in Gothenburg in the early 90s, everyone played with each other in different constellations. And some people listened to Deicide, some people listened to Iron Maiden, and the third guy listened to Thin Lizzy. And that, you know, and then you created music, and it became a mashup of all these genres. I think we were thinking a little bit outside the box already, and we mixed everything within the, not metal scene, but like new wave of British heavy metal with the death metal and some twin guitars, you know, and that's how it came out. And it was totally different.
Why do you think rock and metal has been so enduringly popular in Scandinavia from an innovation perspective? Okay, I know it's very popular in Germany and some other countries too, but in Scandinavia, there's always new shit coming out. There's you guys, Shira. There's so many great bands that are now mixing all of these things together. It never stagnates, but it's always been focused on rock and metal and bringing the genre forward. I can't say that in Australia. There was too many years where most of the rock places these days around me, for example, just play DJ music or just fucking Spotify over the speakers. But Scandinavia, it doesn't seem to be like that. And you guys have toured, so I think you understand what I'm saying. Do you have a view on why Scandinavians are so passionate about rock and metal?
I think it's not only rock and metal. I think Scandinavians, we appreciate like all styles. It's not only the metal style, it's all kinds of music. And I think Scandinavians are open-minded, I think, somehow. So I think it's the same with other genres. It's not only rock and metal. So it's not unique for that kind of music. It's also when it comes to...
Shut it.
Go. No, it's
also
like
when we grew up...
I thought it.
It's like when we grew up, there were a lot of youth centers where we could rehearse and meet like-minded. I mean, going back to what I said in the beginning, meet people who also felt like outsiders and do stuff together. We got to borrow equipment for free. We had like it's called like a study group where as long as you filled out the hours you were there, you got the rehearsal space for free, and that was like, as it was amazing for us to grow up and hang out with. And I think that's part of it also, because that created a community, and then you moved on and you played at these youth centers instead, and then somebody played at a bigger place, and you were there as a support act or a stagehand or whatever. But everybody was involved in everything, and I also inspired everybody to keep on playing music. And like Daniel said, not only metal, even though it might appear so, but we have lots and lots of great Swedish DJs and pop music and everything.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a bit of an indoor culture thing. We have it down here in Australia too, where in Melbourne, a lot of great musicians either live or migrate to Melbourne because it's so bloody cold in Melbourne. It's hot in summer, but, for 6 months of the year, it's freezing. And it's an indoor culture. So, where I'm from, a lot of people go surfing. They play acoustic guitar, but campfire bullshit, they're not trying to do things like what you guys are doing. I think that might have played a role in it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough, lads. Look, I'll leave it there. Thank you so much for answering my questions. I appreciate the catalyst for our chat was due to this outstanding album from The Halo Effect. But look, I just couldn't resist because we probably won't get a chance to chat again. So thank you very much for giving me so much of your time. I do appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks, lads. Good luck with everything.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Take care.
Yes. Thanks. Bye. Well, there you have it, ladies and gents. I hope I didn't punish them too much by asking too many In Flames questions. But as I say in the introduction, an opportunity to chat to these guys and not talk about In Flames is an opportunity spoiled, and I really wanted to go there, so I hope you enjoyed the ride. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I'm the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast series. If you enjoyed that chat, there are plenty more just like it over at scarsandguitars.com. What's more, if you enjoy listening to the podcast, you may enjoy reading about some of the interviews that I've conducted, around about, I think there was 90 individual interviews that I have dissected and expanded on in my book, Scars and Guitars Volume 1, Conversations from the World of Heavy Metal, Hard Rock and Beyond. Click on the banner. You'll go to a intermediary site which will allow you to go to any one of the marketplaces from which you typically download your ebooks: Amazon, Google Books, Barnes & Noble, Angus & Robertson, whatever it might be, it'll be there. Download a sample, and if you do purchase the book, please hit me up because I want to thank you personally. That's it from me. I've already done my little bit of an outro and said who I am, but I'm going to say it again. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I'm the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast series. Until next time, it's a very goodbye for now.